My name is Rose and this is Easy to Cook at Home. Today I'm going to be making a Victoria sandwich, also known as a Victoria sponge. It's named after Queen Victoria because she loved to have a piece of cake in the afternoon with her afternoon tea. It's a very easy cake to make and you can freeze it for later use. You can add different variants to it like lemon and raspberries and that sort of thing. It's very easy to make and it's very much a quintessential cake in the UK. You find it in most of the tea shops and the tea rooms. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so let's have a look at our ingredients. You need 200 grams of caster sugar, 200 grams of softened butter, 200 grams of self-raising flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, not to be confused with baking soda, 2 tablespoons of milk and 4 eggs. I know, you can see 5. Well, the reason for that is because we have chickens. You can probably hear them squawking in the background at the moment. And they lay very, very small eggs. So ordinarily you'd use 4 medium-sized eggs. And that's why I've got 5 in there, because they're very, very small eggs. Now for the inside, I'm going to put some nice strawberry jam. I'm going to whip up some whipping cream. And to that I'm going to add some icing sugar for a nice frosting. And then we're going to decorate it with some lovely strawberries. Okay, so I've just lightly greased 2 cake tin pans. They're 8 inches, which is 20 centimetres. And I'm also going to put what they call a cartouche just in the bottom. Basically, it's just a piece of grease-proof paper just in the bottom. This ensures that when you turn them out, they're not going to stick to anything. And mine are self-releasing bottoms. It doesn't really matter if you don't have self-releasing bottoms. I just find it a lot easier just to turn it out. So into my bowl I'm going to add the caster sugar. To that I'm going to add in the butter, nicely softened. Now I'm just going to beat that until it's lovely and airy. Basically what we want to do is to make it really nice and soft and bring in the first aeration process of making the cake. Okay, so it's got halfway through how I'd like it to be. You can see it's getting nice and fluffy there. It's changing colour to a beautiful kind of like light yellow. But what you need to do is make sure that you scrape down all of the sides. As you can see, it's a darker yellow there, which means it's not been incorporated. So you want to make sure that all is going to get nice and light and fluffy. You just scrape it down and then let that go for a little bit longer. Okay, so while that's beating away, I'm going to beat up the eggs as well. And I'll beat the eggs up. Well, not literally beat them up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them into this jug and I'm going to whisk them until they're nice and light and fluffy. When you're making a cake, whether it be a Victoria sandwich or any other cake, the main component of making a nice light and fluffy cake is through each process you want to get as much air incorporated through each of the different stages to get a nice light and fluffy cake. So I'm just going to put the eggs into this jug here. Okay, so now that I've got all the eggs in the jug here, I'm just going to beat them up to they're nice and light and fluffy. Okay, so you just want to get nice air bubbles through the eggs. Get them nice and light and fluffy. Okay, so as you can see, it's almost a white colour now. I'm just going to scrape down the sides again. And then we're going to add in the beaten up eggs. Now I did that a couple of times, just scrape down the bowl a couple of times throughout. Okay, so you can see all the air bubbles in the egg. I'm just going to add that in gradually, a bit at a time, so it doesn't curdle. Okay, so halfway through adding the egg, I'm just going to scrape down the sides again just to make sure everything gets incorporated. Okay, so as you can see, it's nice and light and fluffy now. Nice and fluffy. Okay, so the next process is to add in the flour. Now, because my Kenwood is an old beast, I have to have one of these flour guards. Otherwise the flour will go everywhere. It's got this lovely little lip. So I'm just going to gradually add the flour in there, a little bit by little bit. You don't want to knock it around too much, because all that lovely air that you've put through that mixture, the flour can knock it all back out again. So you just want to add the flour in just slowly and gently, just so it's nicely incorporated. Once you've got all the flour in there, you just want to make sure you scrape down the sides again, and then just give it one more whiz around. Just make sure you've incorporated all of the flour. That's looking nice and light and fluffy. Then after the flour's gone in, just add in the milk. And then last but no means least, you add in the baking powder. Just give that a little bit of a mix. Now with our sponge mix ready, we need to equally divide this into both of our cake tins. You can almost see the cobwebby design where all the air is. It's nice and light and fluffy. Okay, so now that we've divided the mixture into both of our prepared cake tins, we just want to smooth it out, make it nice and even. Now I find with most sponges in the oven, they tend to cook unevenly. So what I normally do, because most of the mixture ends up in the middle, I like to just make it a little bit less in the middle. This is so that when it rises, you should get a more even cake topping. You just want to try and make it as even as you possibly can, but I normally leave a little bit of a dent just right in the centre. Okay, so now it's just a matter of putting them in the oven. We're going to put them in there for around about 20 minutes. Okay, so they've been in the oven for 20 minutes, and I just put a skewer in and then pulled out, and you can see there's no mixture coming out on the skewer there. So I'm just going to leave them in the tin for about 5 minutes just so they cool down a bit, and then I'll take them out and put them on a wire rack to cool down until they're nice and cold so we can add the filling. Okay, so for the filling, I've taken out the strawberry jam and put it into this dish here. This is just so I could mix it all up. When you take jam out of the fridge, or even if it's been at room temperature, you find it's kind of solidified, and you want to make it nice and runny to go on the top so it's nice and easy to use. So I just basically beat it all up, beat that jam, and then it's nice and runny like this. And that makes it so much easier to spread on top of the cake. Okay, so I'm just going to take the jam and just spread it over evenly. If you put it in little dollops like that, it's much easier to spread. All in different areas. And then just spread it around nice and evenly. Okay, so to make the filling, I've put the whipping cream in the bowl here. I'm just going to whip that up until it's nice and creamy and fluffy. Okay, so that looks about right. Nice and thick like that. You don't want to do it too much, otherwise you'll end up with butter. Now, just to make sure it gets stabilised, if you're going to have this cake over a couple of days, you don't want the cream to go weepy. So I'm just going to add in a little bit of icing sugar or powdered sugar. Just lightly blend that through. This allows it to stay nice and stiff. You won't get any weeping action. Do that lightly. A bit more. And a little bit more. I've got 1/4 of a cup here. Blend it through. Good. Just makes it a little bit stiffer. Okay, so you take spoonfuls of the cream, just put little dollops everywhere. You can use a piping bag if you prefer to do it with a piping bag. You want to leave some for the top. And then with a palette knife you just smooth it over. Go nice and gently because of the jam underneath. And you place on the top. And then you just go around and clean off the edges with your palette knife. Around, and then with a sieve just give it a light dusting of powdered sugar or icing sugar. I've just put some cream into a piping bag here, some of the whipped cream, so you need to leave some for the top. Just some nice little swirls. And then you can decorate it with strawberries as desired. Okay, so I've cut a slice, you can see inside. Some nice cream and jam. You can see the lovely air holes. Nice and light and fluffy. Well, I do hope you enjoyed that video. Please subscribe to my channel. Give me a comment, a like, all that lovely stuff. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye for now. Hope to see you soon. Bye.